All right. All right. So Phil and Will, we're back with more Survivor. It's the off season, so there's no Survivor on TV, which is a little depressing. And
Bummer.
everywhere you look, people are looking for they want to watch older seasons. They're looking for which ones to rewatch. Everybody wants to know what's the best season. And so yeah, pretty much everybody's just looking for Survivor during this time. And so what we're going to do is we're kind of going to go over what makes a great season, what makes a bad season, and we're gonna rank them all 29-1. We're gonna see what we actually have here. So you know, I guess we'll start off. What makes a really good season for you, Willie?
A really good season for me is just its entertainment value. Like how entertained was I throughout the season? It doesn't really need to end with like the best winner ever or the best final two or final three. It's just from episode to episode, was I entertained? And that's how I determine like which seasons I like the best. Because a season can have a really good winner, but just a really boring can be a really boring season. And I don't think a
Yeah.
winner necessarily makes a season good, or having a bad winner makes a season bad. It's just more about my enjoyment level throughout the season. I mean, that
And
has a lot to do with the people, the cast. The cast plays a
yeah.
huge role in how entertaining a season is.
And I think that's the biggest thing is you have to have a really entertaining cast, but they also have to mix together. It can't just be an entertaining cast that kind of just sits there and doesn't really do much. They have to be able to. You got to have your villains. You got to have your good guys. You got to have the people you root for and the people you root against. And really, when it comes down to it, out of somebody who wins, you're either going to sit. You want to sit there and say, "Ooh, I didn't like that person, but they played a good game." I think, or "Oh, I really love that person. I'm happy they won." Like you have to feel about the winner, but they don't necessarily have to be a great winner. They just have to be somebody that you felt some sort of connection with.
Right. And I guess we can just get started here with the rankings. What Phil and I did, we did our own rankings, and then we compiled them into one ranking. So uh, what I had at number one got 29 points. What he got at number one had 29 points, and then 28 points for second, 27 for third, so on, so on. Uh, 29th ranked season got 1 point, and then we totaled the points together to make a compiled ranking. And we'll start at the bottom here. I had One World as the worst season. Phil had Redemption Island. We can talk about what makes the season bad as well. But for One World, I would just say there was no um, power shifts at all. Kim was in control the whole time. She's a fabulous winner. She played a great game, almost a perfect game. But the cast she was dealing with was just so poor and just so dumb that it's hard to. I mean, I didn't like that season like at all. Even though Kim was a great winner.
The difference for me, the reason, I mean, they're tied. One World and Redemption Island, we have tied it for last place with two. What was it? 3 points, right? 3 points.
Right, I had Redemption Island at 28th. You had One World at 28th. So yeah,
Yeah. So we agree that these are the bottom two seasons of the entire show. My reasoning for putting Redemption Island below One World is at least One World had people that I kind of liked a little bit. Like I didn't love anybody on the cast, but Redemption Island, I did not like anyone. There was nobody who I was like, man, I really hope they win. Like I didn't like Andrea. I'm mad they brought her back. I never thought she was that entertaining. Philip was just the ultimate goat he was just like a fool the entire time. That whole Zapatera tribe that got rid of Russell was so forgettable. Like everybody on that cast was forgettable. I feel like at least One World you had Tarzan, who was he a good player? No, he was terrible, but he was like this goofball old guy who at least you remember. I feel like with Redemption Island, there was nobody new that you remembered, and it was really just the Boston Rob show for 4 months.
right. And see, that's kind of why I don't mind Redemption Island as much as One World. Like Redemption Island, it was the first season with Redemption Island, so I guess it was a little bit cool to see it once. It was interesting because Redemption Island kind of was an idea for a while amongst Survivor fans. It's like, what if you went out and then you kind of had a way of getting back in? Like it was never really fleshed out, so it was really kind of cool to see it played out one time. And then Boston Rob, it was such an easy win, but it was a bit entertaining to see like how easily he just mowed through that season. It was just a cakewalk for him, and that was, I like him as a character. I don't want to see him play again. I've seen enough of him, but One World it seemed like everyone playing, just there was no ever moves made against like Kim and her alliance, and it was just it was a bore. It was every episode the vote off was kind of who was going to be voted off going into it, and that's another thing you mentioned is unpredictability is probably what makes a lot for good a good entertaining season is when you're headed into tribal and you don't know who's going to go home, and you are surprised or even shocked when Jeff turns over that last name. That's what's fun. That's when I leave an episode going, man, that was a good episode. One World was just kind of just strolled down to the end doing everything that kind of how it was going to go.
And with both of these seasons, I mean, they were just really it's funny because these might be two of the best games ever played with Boston Rob's and Kim's, but the thing is they were against no one. So it's kind of like you've seen Boston Rob play against better players, and they kind of caught on to his stuff. And you've seen, we haven't gotten to see Kim play against really good players. And I feel like, I don't know if it was so much how good they were, as much as it just was, they were playing with nobody who was, really thinking more than one night ahead. And then the cast, I mean, for both seasons, I feel like they were just completely under-edited cast. You didn't get to know anybody. And they were just kind of there, really, to be picked off for your winner to win. I mean, I didn't really get to know anyone but Kim and Boston Rob.
Exactly. And whether it's Kim and Boston Rob being so good or whether it's the cast being so bad, it doesn't really matter which one it is when we're talking about the quality of the season. It doesn't matter which one it is because either way that leads to a boring season when someone's too good or the cast is too bad. It's probably a combination of both because they both are savvy players and they both did win. But the casts were just so abysmal that it was just a bore. So I think we can move on from these two seasons. We had these at the very bottom. Yeah. And the next season we did agree on. I mean, do you have anything more on Redemption Island or One World?
No, the less we talk about them, the better off I am.
Right, yeah, we've talked about them enough. And then South Pacific, we both had at 27.
Yeah.
I think.
I had Fiji actually at 27. You had South. I had South Pacific at 26.
Okay. South Pacific. The returning players brought back amongst newbies when there's just one on each tribe. It sometimes works, but in most cases, no.
Yeah. And with South Pacific, what happened was at this point I was tired of Coach. I had seen Coach on season 18. I'd seen him on season 20. And now I'm seeing him on season 23. And, Heroes versus Villains is great. Nicaragua was okay. And then it was like Redemption Island we hated. And it was like, I just want to see a new cast with no returning players. And I really didn't like the way the Russell Boston Rob thing worked out in Redemption Island. To see Ozzy and Coach come back, I wasn't excited at all. I felt like it was kind of just like, we think that this is the only way we're going to get ratings. And the rest of the cast they brought in with them really, once again, wasn't that entertaining.
This is when Survivor was just kind of obsessed with returning players, when they were just all about it. Like, pretty much you had, like you said, we had Heroes vs. Villains, then Redemption Island, and then this. It's like that's 3 out of 4 seasons with returning players. And the first time they did this in Guatemala, when it was Stephanie and Bobby John, I was really okay with it because it was new and it was like Steph and Bobby John both were on like the worst tribe ever in Palau, and like they kind of deserve that second chance a little bit. But you have Ozzy and Coach returning for a third time when Coach isn't even a good player. I mean, he's a nut. He's delusional. He doesn't really get the game that well. People take him to the end as a GOAT, and they just hog the airtime. And it's not what Survivor is. It's not when you have 20 strangers, 18 strangers trying to build a society. This was like we have 2 players who have played twice before. They're your leader. It's all about them, and that's what just really made the season pretty long.
And the thing with South Pacific is, they did have potential with the cast. Like Sophie could go down as like one of the better female winners, but you barely got to know her. we didn't get to know Albert, who goes to the final three. Rick was invisible the whole time. You know, the tribe you liked was really the one with Ozzy, where you got Jim, you got Cochran. Everybody kind of liked Cochran on the first time. I know the second time people couldn't stand him, but, you know, everybody, like Dawn, you had a better tribe where Ozzy was, but the fact that the other tribe just ran everything the entire time, it just got boring to watch. And then once again, they brought back Redemption Island, and the Redemption Island once again didn't work.
Redemption Island again. I was surprising to see it back to back, and it was like we just did a season called Redemption Island. Kind of this is it, and then you guys have Survivor South Pacific. It almost was like, is Redemption Island going to be like a permanent part of Survivor? Because they bring in these twists, they bring in the hidden immunity idol. That evolves. Now that's like a very integral part of Survivor. It's like, wait, is Redemption now like? Is this it? Is this what we're dealing with? And it really, and then Ozzy like sacrifices himself. They tried to build it up as some like huge move. The other tribes fell right through it, and it didn't really add anything. Redemption. So.
Yeah, and the thing with Redemption Island is it kind of diminished the whole vote off and blindside, because if you got blindsided, you had a chance to come back and really screw everybody over like Ozzy almost did. Ozzy almost got voted out twice and won the game. Like, that should not be able to happen in Survivor, and I think that's what kind of hurt it is Ozzy should have been gone. I guess they wouldn't have voted him out pre-merge, but, still, Ozzy should have been gone way earlier than he was. Instead, we watched him, and we watched Coach, and it was like one was ruling Redemption Island, the other one was ruling the game, and everybody else was just kind of useless and just kind of there.
Yeah, and I mean, I miss Ozzy from the Cook Islands. I mean, this was such a different version of Ozzy, just he's a little conceited, arrogant, like, I'm the Survivor pro, challenge beast, the provider. It was just not the Ozzy that I like to see. But I think we're done with South Pacific, unless you have anything else.
No, that's it. Let's move on to, so we're up to 26th now. 26th place.
And that's San Juan del Sur?
Yeah.
Yep. Where did you have San Juan del Sur? I think you had it a bit higher than I did.
No, I had it at 24. You had it at 25. I mean, it's just really like a blast season with once again with a really good winner. But were they actually that good of a player, or was it just who they were playing with?
No, Natalie was a great winner. I really liked her as a winner, but the season just lacked just any kind of. I mean, all the good players you wanted to see were voted out early. And we've talked a lot about San Juan del Sur. I don't know how much we need to go into it. It was a very forgettable season. Yeah. Even though the winner was good.
Yeah, so I think we've said so much about San Juan del Sur. If you really want to hear about that, we have 4 podcasts on it, and so I think we just move on next to 25.
I mean, were you entertained week to week? Like, I didn't feel entertained week to week.
No, not at all.
Pre-merge wasn't anything special. Post-merge, some big vote-offs, but I mean, you kind of just by the time the finale came around, you knew who the winner was.
Yeah.
Lame. So on to 25th ranked season, Fiji.
Yeah. And again, I mean, this really what we're doing right now with these bottom 5 seasons is we just proved that having a great winner really means nothing for your season if the rest of the season sucks.
Very true. Because Earl played a great game. He won unanimously, the first player to ever do so.
Yeah.
And this season did have some other great cast members. Yao Man, Dreams. I love the car bet and how that played out. I thought that was interesting. But for the most part, the other cast members weren't that memorable, and not anything no really big moments that really left me, really entertained and wanting, can't wait to see the next episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was the thing. That this was the first season where I remember, like, people were really talking about, like, this was when the recruiting kind of, like, showed its face, where you had people that you really couldn't connect with at all. You had that guy, Rocky. I don't know if you remember him, but he was like a boxer from Philly. He was so overblown. He wasn't real. Like, that was the problem with that season is most of the cast members were just kind of like, they were stereotypes of stereotypes, and it was just like, why? Like, what am I watching? These aren't people that I want to know and be like. Whereas Yao Man and Earl, who made it far, you could kind of connect with, But, I mean, that could have just also been because of who they were on the season with.
Yeah, well, Yao Man was a special dude. I remember him. he just comes in and there's this box that no one can open, and he just drops it on its side.
Yeah.
That was great to see, and you immediately fell in love with Yao Man. He became an instant favorite. And then Earl played just a very savvy game. I don't think the players were necessarily as bad as they were in, One World or Prudential, but they just weren't that fun to watch.
Yeah, it was the fact that every week you were coming back and you knew what you were getting. You knew who was going to hog the screen time. You knew who was going to get it all. And really, it was between Earl and Yao Man, and everybody liked Yao Man more, I feel like. So the finale was still something that was must-watch TV, but everything before that was just kind of like, you had the Four Horsemen Alliance, which was kind of useless with Edgardo, Mookie, Alec. They were all just kind of bitter people, and this was like one of the first seasons where you really saw, like, they just casted bitter people on top of bitter people, and I don't know, I feel like it's just such a negative season that really, the more you think about it, the further down it goes.
Yeah, and we have it at, it's a bottom 5 season at 25.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to 24. Fourth place season is Fans vs. Favorites 2, Caramoan.
Yeah.
And the problem here is that they didn't really have favorites on the tribe. You had Malcolm, which was great. Love Malcolm. He was definitely a favorite. And then you have Philip, who is just, why is he playing again? You have Francesca, not Francesca, and that was single-handedly a player picked for Philip. Like, that's awful. And you have a player that shouldn't even returning, and then another player returning just because of that other player. Like, that was terrible. You're wasting a cast member. Seeing her get voted out first was like, yay, that's funny, ha-ha, but like, what a waste of a cast member picking a season of favorites.
And the thing with this was, I think what happened to Survivor here was they screwed themselves because of Season 22, they didn't have memorable characters. Season 23, they didn't have memorable characters. And that was because they brought back Russell, Rob, Ozzy, and Coach. And because they brought them back, they overshadowed these other players that you could have seen. And really, the only favorites I was excited to see back were Eric Reichenbach, because I thought he should. I wanted to see Eric Reichenbach back for a second time, no doubt. Brenda, I was excited to see back. Cochran, I wanted to see Cochran again because I feel like he kind of got bullied around the first time, and I wanted to see how he grew as a person. You knew Cochran was going to come back. And after those three, I guess Corinne was a cool one because of Gabon. But the rest of the cast, like Brandon Hance is never going to win the game. Francesca is never going to win the game. Andrea was a follower her whole season until she got voted off and realized that she should have done something. Like, it just wasn't – the favorites were boring, and then the fans were – pretty much equally as boring.
Right. If you're comparing the favorites from Fans vs. Favorites 2 to Fans vs. Favorites 1, it just there's no comparison. Fans vs. Favorites 1 was actually built up of, everyone was a pretty strong player, and I really did like a few players on the second one, Malcolm, Corinne, but like you said, also the fans tribe was nothing special. When they do these fans vs. favorites, the fans just get completely overshadowed. And then the people that made it deep into the game, like Philip, he took up so much airtime. It was so frustrating to watch. And then also the editing was probably the weakest it has ever been because you knew no one could really win besides Cochran, just by the way they were portraying the players.
And that was from, like, episode 5. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell from, like, episode 5 Cochran was going to win that game.
Right, and we really haven't talked much about editing, but that does play into how good a season is, how bad a season is. If you know who the winner is, going into the finale or even a few episodes before, it just takes so much of the fun of watching the show because you want to know who's going to win, and that's why San Juan del Sur, once Josh and Jamie were gone, and John was kind of being portrayed like a goofball, Natalie was so clear to win. And then by John's blind side, you knew it was Natalie. And that's why that season was low. And that's why Caramoan is in 24 because Cochran was just such the obvious winner.
Yeah, and really, as far as returning players, if you look at the fans, the only one I could really ever see them bringing back is Reynolds. And I feel like the rest of the fans were just they were just there. Like, once again, you had a whole tribe that was just there. There was nobody memorable.
Yeah,
it has the girl Hope. She was the least edited Survivor of all time. think she had one confessional in 2 episodes, and then she's out of the game. Like, why even bring her on the show? It's not even worth our time.
And you're saying that for the fans tribe, there are also people like that on the favorites tribe. So on both tribes, you have a lot of just,
Yeah.
I could see Reynolds coming back, but that's about it.
Yep.
On to Thailand, which is 23rd place. I love Thailand's winner. He's probably one of my favorite winners. And he's not one of these winners that played with complete idiots. That he kind of controlled them so well. And watching the season on a rewatch, knowing that Brian wins, it makes the season better. And it's fun to see how he just was kind of in control without being this aggressive leader or aggressive playmaker. He just kind of had everything laid out, and that's what did make the season pretty boring because it was kind of a pagonging just with Brian in control.
And and that's the thing with that season is Brian is I agree with you. He's one of the best winners the show ever had, and I know that the casting hates him. He was a real scumbag in real life, all that stuff. But the cast wasn't bad. The cast was pretty entertaining. He's a good winner. They were one of the first bitter casts. But once again, like you said, it's just a pagonging. It's just you knew going into it, Brian's tribe was going to run it because they were more together. And after the fake merge, when Cheyenne goes home, really there were no memorable moments in that other than Brian flipping off the camera and beating Clay. That's really all that there was.
Yeah, there wasn't anything to kind of talk about that season. It was all right, we have this guy who dominated. And it falls with these other bottom seasons of, the winner played a great game, but that's what made it boring. So, and not to say that every great winner has a boring season. That's not true. And I would say Brian did play with a stronger cast than the ones we discussed earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But, the season just wasn't memorable.
He was too dominant. There was never a struggle for Brian. You knew Brian. Brian was the only one who was thinking, I'm going to win this game, compared to the rest of who he was aligned with. And that's really what kind of brings the season down just a little bit. I don't think it's as bad as everybody makes it out to be. Thailand is watchable. And a lot of people just make Thailand out to be the worst thing ever.
And Brian convinced other people that he was taking them. He convinced Ted. Ted thought he and Brian were super tight, but Brian wanted to go with Clay. And Brian had it in everyone's head that they were all going with him. I don't know how they didn't figure it out. So it was very well orchestrated, and just watching it again, knowing Brian's the winner, does make it really. It's really an impressive win. Not that exciting of a season though. So 22nd place is Nicaragua.
Yep, and
I had pretty high, a little bit higher than you, I believe, because I am a fan of Nicaragua, probably more than most people. It did come right after Heroes vs. Villains, which was such a great season, so it definitely felt like a letdown of a season. But the cast is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually just rewatched the premiere of Nicaragua just to see, and the cast is good. Really what did this season in was that it was old versus young, and the old kind of got wiped out so easily at the beginning that the old they were always on the ropes once the merge hit, and good players like Marty, Jane, I didn't really like Jane, but like Jill, they didn't really ever have a chance to get their footing and move forward, and then you have Dan Lembo making it to 5th place, and it's like, at that point, I almost wanted Dan Lembo to win just because it was so ridiculous that he was still in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he was going to be one of the first boots on his tribe for being weak. And that season also had Jimmy Johnson. He went home early. He ate up a good amount of airtime. But I'm a Jimmy Johnson fan, so that was interesting to see him on the show. And he is a big fan. And then we talk about the winner, Fabio. I mean, if you watch the game and watch what he did, I mean, he's silly. He's a goofball, but he didn't really make many mistakes. He stayed in people's good graces. And, he wasn't, you got to remember, you're living with these people 24 hours on an island. He, was likable, and that's how he got votes, and he managed to stay in the game. So a lot of people think Fabio is this idiot, but I think he kind of played it pretty smart. I'm going to make them think I'm a silly idiot, when in fact I kind of know what I'm doing. So I do respect Fabio's game.
I think why Nicaragua takes a big hit too is because Nyanka ate up a lot of airtime and then quit. And I think that makes people really mad that she quit. And then Purple Kelly quits the same episode, same tribal council, and you're sitting there watching it, and you're like, we just had heroes versus villains where some people were playing for the third time, and now I'm watching first timers quit, and it was just kind of like, oh well, that's really disappointing. You watched all these people who wanted to play the game get voted out, and there was nothing Survivor can do. Like, I understand, but like, you casted these people, like, that killed it for me. That really did kill it. And I think before that, I kind of was iffy on the season. When that happened, that's when it dropped so far from it.
Yeah, quits are rarely a good thing. And medevac. I mean, they don't really do much for a season. And having two in the same episode, and especially with Nyanka, I mean, Purple Kelly was like, she had not one confessional, I don't think. But Nyanka ate up so much airtime. You thought maybe she'd have a better ending than a quit. But what are you going to do with quitters? It's a mediocre season. I have it at 19. I think you have it
23.
23. So we're not disagreeing by that much. So yeah, it's kind of a lame season. So on to the next one.
21, we have Borneo, and this is the one where we disagree the most.
It is. Okay.
And
well,
this came up a lot in our one-time player draft, where I picked a lot of Borneo, and you kind of overlooked Borneo. And I guess it's more nostalgia for me, but I love the cast of Borneo, and that's why I had it. I had it at 13. You had it at 24. And I just love this cast, and that's why it ranks so highly for me. So
I do love the cast. I agree the cast is good. But as I've said before, what makes a season good, what makes a season bad is entertainment just throughout. And the votes, the way they voted was just, it didn't provide for many surprises at Tribal. It was a very simple season. It was the first season. So
yeah.
I'm not grading it based on saying it's the first season, give it a handicap. I'm grading it amongst all the other seasons on the equal playing field. And when you do that, it just doesn't, compare to some of the better seasons.
Here's my thing, and I'm kind of looking at what we have directly in front of Borneo, and here's a spoiler alert. 20 is Panama. And my thing, the difference between Borneo and Panama, Borneo was like entertaining for all the reasons that normal Survivor seasons aren't entertaining. It was just funny. It was just like this cast was so likable. And yeah, it was a pagonging. I mean, that's where the name comes from. But when you look at a season that's right ahead of it, that we have ranked right ahead of it with Panama, that was a pagonging too, and I don't feel like it was nearly as entertaining. And you had Panama higher up. That's why we kind of have that. That's like this discrepancy where Borneo, I feel like, is way too low on our rank list, just because it was a pagonging, but it was a likable pagonging. If that makes sense.
Well, I have Panama ahead for other reasons, mainly because of the tribe that is Kasaya. But
okay,
I can do that later when we hit Panama. But yeah, I mean, and I've said this before. I said this before when we did the player draft. It just doesn't feel very Survivor-y, the Borneo season. It's just a different, odd season. And not that I didn't enjoy it. I mean, we're getting into. I mean, there aren't that many bad Survivor seasons. So while it is at 21, that doesn't mean it wasn't enjoyable and I didn't like it. It's just that I don't like it as much as 20 other seasons.
Gotcha.
So, and the pagonging is a big reason for that. So, but great cast though. Great cast.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is when I look at that cast, the tribe the Pagong tribe for me is one of my favorite tribes still. And I know that they weren't players, but I just loved watching them all do it. Like Joel and Jervis they're being told that they're chauvinists. You had Colleen and Greg doing their thing. You had Gretchen. You had BB, who was such an entertaining older player. He actually just passed away. But like, you had this really, really entertaining cast. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those seasons where I always wish, like I said this in the other day, I always wish that this is one of the seasons that happened like season 15, and I feel like this would be one of the #1 seasons just because of the cast.
Right. I don't disagree with you. I think if they had seen more survivors, they knew about gameplay a little bit more, maybe throw an idol or two in there, it could be one of the best seasons. I just, watching it, it's a tad boring, but it is the first season, so they were just learning
Yeah.
What goes on. So that brings us to Panama.
Which I already spoiled, at being number 20. But, yeah.
Yeah, and I already mentioned Kasai. It's my favorite tribe in Survivor history.
And that's the one with, that was the one with Aris, right?
Right, yeah, this is after they got rid of the 4.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was after they got rid of the 4 tribes, yeah.
Yeah, it had Aris, Cirie, Shane, Courtney, Danielle, and
Bruce.
Danielle, Courtney, and Shane were like supposed to be this 4 tight alliance, but they just all kind of butted heads and hated each other throughout, and you always thought that this foursome was just going to crack and break, and Cirie just kind of hung around being very likable and motherly and became really close with Aris, and you had Terry in there, who was great. And then that astronaut Dan early on. I mean, he was a great guy. I mean, I really did enjoy this season thoroughly throughout.
What this season comes down to is if Terry doesn't win immunity all those times, he's gone at 6th place. And yeah, I know you love the Kasaya tribe, but then it's just a pagonging like everything else. I mean, once the merge hit, you had that guy Nick goes first, Austin goes second, Sally goes third. Like, it was just, you were watching that tribe fall, like, just disappear. And, it was all because of the numbers. And then Bruce got sick, which kind of helped Terry. He had something happen to him. But, like, it was for me, once again, it was kind of like you had so many likable players on the other side. You would have liked to have seen if they could have broken into that alliance at least a little bit.
Right. I agree. I mean, it would have been fun to see, but it was also just so. It's like, how did these 4, 5? How did they stick together when they were constantly at each other's throats? You would think it would be easy, and that's kind of what I was expecting to happen, was them to break up. And so when the opposite happens, I know this is kind of a reverse of how Survivor goes. You expect the majority alliance to just vote out the minority alliance. Here, you had the majority alliance, they were so crazy, and it's just so insane, and I expected them to crack. So when they didn't, I didn't really look at it as a begonging, just because it's not really what I expected. But Aris, pretty solid winner, smart guy, nothing crazy. He didn't do anything great. I mean, he just kind of stayed in control, and he did a good job at holding his alliance together. I mean, Shane was about to quit, and Aris talked him out of it, and that, was a became pretty important down the road.
Yeah. No, I once again, like you said with Borneo, other than maybe 5 or 6 seasons, there's really no bad seasons. And this just comes down to there are 19 better seasons than Panama, I think. You know what I mean? Like, I just think there's better seasons than Panama.
Right. What did I have Panama at? I had Panama at 16.
And I had it at 20, which is right where it ended up anyway. So.
Okay. Yeah, not far off. So, okay, on to Africa, 19.
This was another one of those seasons where it was early Survivor, and once again, it was one tribe dominated post-merge, and that's what hurts these older seasons, is that there wasn't as many blindsides going on, once the merge actually happened. And I mean, this had the first great twist in Survivor history with Silas getting screwed over with Frank and Teresa, which was great.
And the first tribe swap, Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just making sure that people know that it's the first tribe swap. I think Lex, Big Tom, great characters. When Teresa voted for Lex, that was a fun witch hunt, and it was fun to see her kind of keep quiet. Ethan is a pretty mediocre winner. He, was okay at challenges, but again, it's just a likable guy not getting voted off because you don't really mind living with him. But I mean, I don't really have much to say about Africa. It's a solid season. It's just nothing special that happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's just it's like we mentioned the characters who everybody remembers, and really, other than that, there wasn't much really going on. There really just wasn't that much happening, and that's kind of what did it in, you know. So, at
So
18,
is the season that follows Africa, Marquesas.
yeah, and this one we disagreed on a lot too. You had it way higher than I did, and I've never had a huge affinity for Marquesas.
I like Marquesas. I had it at 13. I found the cast to be very likable. I liked a lot of the cast with Pascal and Nele, their little thing. I know a lot of people call it Nele for being really fake, but I think they had a really serious bond. And Sepia, I mean, we didn't get to see so much of her, but she definitely. I mean, even Rob, when Rob was playing, I was like, man, Sepia knows what she's doing. She's strategic. She's making friends with everybody. She played a pretty savvy game. She made that great move against Kathy at the Final Immunity Challenge, which was pretty brilliant, I thought.
Yeah.
Kathy was a great character. I mean, they had the morning show. That was fun. I mean, this was an early Survivor season that I felt really Survivor was really taking shape.
And well, my thing was I thought the move by when Kathy, Pascal, and Nalia got Sean and Vecepia on their side, and they took down that huge group of four that was led by John, who really thought he was going to win the game. I thought that was a great move. And then after that, once again, it was nothing happened. Nothing happened after that to me until the Purple Rock, which was awesome. But there was like those 5 episodes where really it was like you knew that once John went, Tammy, Robert, and Zoe were going to follow.
Yeah, and I do agree with you there, and that's why I don't have it as like a top 5 season, is because that's why I have it at 12. But I really did like the cast for the most part, and The Rock was interesting, and I had fun with Marquesas. It was even though you kind of knew what was going to happen, like you said during that stretch, I still wanted to see the next episode. I was looking forward to really. It felt because they actually dwelled on some survival elements in this season. It wasn't all about. I mean, there were no idols or anything. It felt very real. It was very well edited. We got to see a lot of players and get to know a lot of players, and yeah, this would be a much higher season if it weren't for that stretch that you mentioned. So
yeah, and the one last thing with Marquesas is this was really the first season where the stronger people got voted out pre-merge, and that was because of Boston Rob. He saw these strong threats, and he was like, we're going to get rid of them because I feel like this is what needs to be done. And then the other thing that I do like about Marquesas is it really set the tone for like the next almost 20 seasons of Survivor where people were terrified of the Purple Rock. It really set that tone, and that was a huge moment for Survivor when the Purple Rock happened. So it does have big moments. I just don't feel like it's better than what we have ahead of it, and even some of the ones that we have behind it.
Okay, I mean, agree to disagree. That's fine. I just I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But on to 17th is Cook Islands.
Yeah, and Cook Islands for me, they tried to separate them. It was by they separated by race, right?
Yeah, by race. Very interesting way to do it.
It was
intriguing.
Actually, this one is funny because we both agreed that we both had it at number 17, and then it ends up coming in at number 17. So that's kind of funny. We just agreed on this one.
In 17, now we're really getting into good seasons. I mean, this by no means was. I mean, we've already mentioned this, but 17 is not that low as it sounds. And this cast is pretty good. I mean, you have Penner, Poverty, Candace, who have all returned. I don't know why Candace has returned.
Don't like Candace, but what I do like about Candace is she was like this little she was everybody's little like crush on this season. Her and Adam making out when she gets voted out. Then you got Billy with probably one of the most memorable early vote outs, which is hysterical still
Billy,
to this day.
Just one of the most memorable Survivor moments. And then you have
love
the foursome of Yul, Ozzy, Becky, and oh man, I'm blanking.
Sandra. They overcame the mutiny.
Right. They overcame with Jonathan Penner flipping, and then they got rid of Jonathan
And
once they didn't need him.
Candace flipped too.
Yeah, and
Remember,
then it was a
well, Jonathan flipped after the merge, but Jonathan and Candace both jumped ship at the mutiny, at the opportunity.
they both mutinied, and then I was talking about later when
Yeah.
Jonathan then flipped that foursome, and then that foursome voted him out. And then this was the first ever Final Three, which was pretty interesting, and Yule figured that out. And Yule's a
Yeah.
pretty solid winner. He was always,
Yule's,
making moves. I mean, nothing crazy exciting about him, but he's a smart
yeah.
guy.
He's a great winner. He's just kind of boring. That's really what it came down to with him, and that's why people remember Ozzy more. And that's why Ozzy, Penner, that's why they've played again, and that's why Yule really hasn't, I think.
And Cook Islands Ozzy was just he was fun,
Oh,
fun
yeah.
to watch, great swimmer, had that long hair, and
Yeah.
much better than other two showings.
I agree.
Next is All Stars at 16.
And I feel like this was really the first disappointment in Survivor history, where it was like everybody was so pumped they were coming back, and yeah, it had like that huge spark of these are the returning players, this is awesome. But what kind of made it hurt was they had the agenda of let's get rid of winners, and then let's worry about who I had who I didn't like on my season. The Jerry Colby thing was great to see again, but Jerry's whole goal was just to beat Colby, and then that just ruined her season. And the fact that they just got rid of all those winners one after the other, it made the beginning too predictable. Other than Rudy going home, really everybody was a winner that went home before the merge.
Yeah, and also it was kind of this big build-up because you were like, wow, this is going to be incredible. It's going to be the best season, and it clearly wasn't. But I think All Stars had one of the best finales and best reunion shows. It was so heated during that final tribal council. It was so heated during the reunion show. Jerry got booed off stage. Rob proposes. It was just such a heated season. Like the whole Lex and Rob thing was really great to see because Lex had just done that to Ethan. Like Lex just ousted Ethan saying, I know we're friends, but it's just a game. And then Rob ousted Lex, and Lex is just so pissed. I mean, you can kind of see why he saved Amber, single-handedly saved Amber.
What hurts All Stars a lot, too, I think, is Amber won. She's a bad winner. She really is. I think she's the worst winner the show's ever had. That's just me. I think Rob carried her all the way through. She got saved once again by Lex because of Rob. Like, she didn't really do anything to control her own destiny. She just won because the jury was bitter. The second thing that bothers me about that season is Jenna Lewis gets third place, and I do not like Jenna Lewis. That's the one person from Borneo I really do not like, and I don't know why she came back. I think they just wanted to get another person there. I really enjoyed the Hatch-Sue argument, but then it went a little too far and got a little too weird.
Yeah.
Jenna Maraska quitting kind of sucked. There were so many moments there, but there were some that were really bad and there were some that were really great, and it mushes together to make an average season, I feel like.
Yes, it's an average season, but I think it does get a bad rap because of it was supposed to be an all-star, like the greatest season. But the Sue Richard thing, there was just so much heat in this season, so much tension. And some of the players already knew each other, which added to that. It was the first returning season, so it was just, I'm probably a bigger fan of All-Stars more than most. Where did I have it? I had All-Stars, I had it at 15, so kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, I had it at 19, so not really far off.
Not too far off. I just love the tension kind of the whole time. And Amber, yeah, she is probably the worst winner. Not that I like Amber, and she did, get votes, which you got to get to the end and get votes. That's the goal. So it's hard to really say she didn't deserve it because that's what she accomplished the goal. But she definitely rode Rob's coattail, first coattail riding winner.
And you know what it is with this season, too? It was almost like with All-Stars, it was the evil version, the evil twin of all of our favorite players, where everybody was just so like you were saying, there was so much heat in this, where it was just everybody was so mad at each other the whole time, and you got to see all of the angry versions of these people that you loved, and by the time it got down to it, I was like, is that even Rupert anymore? Is that even Big Tom anymore? You didn't even know what you were watching. It was just really angry, bitter people who were mad that really Boston Rob got the best of that.
Yeah, kind of why I liked it, just because it was a bit different, not really what we were expecting. But yeah, average season. I think that's all for All Stars. On to 14, Vanderwalk, and we disagreed pretty heavily here.
Wait, we're at 15, aren't we? Yeah, you're looking at your list. That we had All Stars at 16.
I'm looking at the wrong list. Okay. Oh,
15, we have Blood versus Water.
Blood versus Water. We disagreed pretty heavily on this one too.
I had this one at number 10. I had this one cracking my top 10, and you had it all the way down at 21.
I will tell you why. Mainly because of editing, I would say. I knew Tyson was going to win probably when Aris went home, maybe an episode later. I mean, you could just see him winning. By the time the finale came around, you just knew it was him. It was just, I found that just so obvious and so clear. And maybe it was just clear in my mind and I just got lucky guessing, but that really took it down for me a lot. And it did have some great moments. We did get another rock draw, which was really exciting.
Only the second one ever.
What's that?
Only the second one ever, right?
Right, second one ever. Hayden, Vetus, Sierra, great additions. I like them. Not too many other great additions from the newbies in that season. And also they really overplayed the whole family member thing. Lots of tears kind of eating up airtime. It had Redemption Island, which is just I didn't need to see Redemption Island again, which I did like how they did it. I'll let you state your case in a second, but I'm just going to get all this out there. And then Sierra voting for her mom. They act like this is this huge thing when Sierra, like, her vote didn't matter. She could have voted for anyone. Her mom still would have went home. She voted for her mom just to make sure she didn't cast a vote for someone still remaining. So it wasn't like she was responsible for her mom leaving. And I hate it every time they overplay that and make this big thing. It irks me to no end because it's just that vote didn't matter. Man, the final three, Monica and Jarvis, it's like Tyson had it so locked up.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan.
All right, my turn. Why I have it at top 10? Pretty much disagreeing with everything you said. This is the only time I feel like Redemption Island ever worked, and I feel like it worked great. It brought some of the best moments from the show. The whole Brad Culpepper thing, the thing with Jervis's niece, the fact that you could swap out to determine it right off the bat. They throw Rupert makes that stupid ass move to go to the Redemption Island so that his wife does, and his wife gets stuck with a bunch of returners who are now pissed off that they don't have Rupert. You lose Candace because people just didn't know who Candace was. I liked all that. I think Tyson played a really good game, and this was the first time we actually got to see Tyson play, and it happened because they got rid of Rachel, and the way they got rid of Rachel really bothered him. And then this was the only season I feel like where you had returning players and newbies where you really got to know the newbies and like them because the returning players were kind of second-tier players. You had Kat back, who was kind of nobody ever thought Kat was coming back. Monica Culpepper was kind of useless. Jervis I never thought to see back, and like I've met Jervis, so that makes me really happy that Jervis comes back onto the show because like I've seen Jervis talk to Jervis, and like he's a cool guy, so I thought that was awesome to see Jervis come back after all those seasons.
Wait, so is Jarvis the only player you've met?
Yeah, he's the only one I've met.
The only player I've ever met is Hayden and Kat. I ran into them at a bar, and I guess that's kind of crazy. Both Blood versus Water.
From this season. And
yeah.
What puts Blood versus Water as my top 10 over the other ones is Hayden and Sierra were great characters who were able to overcome the whole, these are returning players, we're in awe of them. I don't feel like they were ever in awe. And Hayden, man, there was one part where Hayden just says to Tyson, like, we're talking about blindsiding you. And Tyson just kind of laughed it off because, like, he knew, like, he was in control, and Tyson knew he was going to win. And Hayden was playing so hard, and Sierra was playing so hard. And for me, it was an unpredictable season. Yeah, I kind of knew Tyson was going to win, but everything else going up to that was unpredictable. And to see Tina and her daughter, and Tina have to beat her daughter, like, I felt like the emotion, they forced it on it a little bit, but nothing like San Juan del Sur and some of the other seasons. And I feel like it really, really worked, and I really, really liked it, and I really, really liked the reunion and everything. This season to me, for some reason, it just stands out amongst the other ones. Higher up than a lot of people I know have it.
Okay, well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I've made my points. I don't think we need to have a back and forth on Blood vs. Water.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much tells people that they're like, here's why you should love it, and here's why you shouldn't love it. And
yeah.
I think, there you go.
It wasn't, and then again, I had it at 21, but 21 still isn't even that bad.
No.
Survivor seasons. I just found other seasons to be much better. We are now to Samoa at 14.
And this was another one we disagreed on pretty heavily. You had it at 11. I had it at 18.
Yes. Would you like to go first?
I only have one thing to say about Samoa, and really the only problem with it is horrible editing. Just terrible editing. Terrible. You didn't know anybody but Russell.
I didn't mind this editing as much because this was the first time we really saw this type of editing, and it was new, and it was like, man, Russell ran through, like, they merged 4 to 8, and then those 4 got to the final 5. Like, that was, I don't think we had seen a tribe that down and out
since Cook Islands.
What's that?
Since Cook Islands.
Yeah, it was great to see. And Russell, you had, like, he was finding idols without clues. That was the first time. And say what you want to about Russell, he's entertaining. And I know I wasn't there living with him. It was fun to watch him play Samoa. It was fun to see his confessionals, how mean, and like he was, he'd take people's socks and throw them in the fire. I mean, he was a new player that we really hadn't seen, and I know we've seen enough of him now, but when watching Samoa for the first time, that was entertaining. And when I show people Survivor, when I'm trying to get my friends to watch, Samoa is one of the first seasons I'll show them because people just gravitate to, like, one person just, like, kind of dominating through. And I agree that he shouldn't have won. I'm not trying to sit here and say he should have won, but he made that season very entertaining. And if you don't like Russell, it's probably not one of your favorite seasons. You probably hate it. If you're a fan of that type of aggressive gameplay and with John Fincher flipping, so we didn't have to draw a rock, like, I thought that was great. The cast was pretty solid. The editing could have been better. I think they could have edited Brett to be, Russell's opposition. So when we got down to that final immunity challenge, it was like, it wasn't so obvious Russell was going to win. Because when we got there, it's like you knew Brett wasn't going to the final 3. We didn't see enough of Brett at all. If they had edited Brett a little more equally to Russell, that could have been an insanely intense challenge. But you kind of knew Russell was going to win just because, Brett wasn't going to win the game. We just hadn't seen enough of it.
And that was my thing is Natalie wins. And, people can say Natalie's a good player. People can say she's a bad player. My whole thing with Natalie White is I didn't get to see her. I didn't get to see her play. So I don't really know how she played. I didn't get to see enough of her, and that's what bothers me a lot about this season is not that she's a bad winner, she's just an unknown. And I feel like the way they edited it, I like Russell a lot. And the only reason I have it low isn't because he got over-edited. It's because everybody else got under-edited. And, Mick and Natalie, it was almost like he's sitting there with 2 goats who did nothing. The way the editing made it seem. And, I like Russell. I think Russell should have won that season. I think he got robbed there. And,
I think what I've read about after Natalie, which they didn't show, like, at the end of, like, her closing argument was she went to each player on the jury and, like, told them something that she knew about them, and she really developed a relationship with everyone on the jury. And she was responsible for Eric's blindside. That wasn't a Russell move. She was the one that pulled the girls over to get enough votes to blindside Eric. And Natalie, it's getting to the end and getting votes is the goal. And Natalie, that's what she did. And I think I definitely agree with you. We need to be, should see more Natalie. I would love to see her play again and get a fair edit. Anything else on Samoa?
No, that's it. I think we said enough about Samoa. It's a good season, not a great season, not a bad season. I feel like it's just a good season.
Okay. Um, we have, let's see, Guatemala. After
Guatemala, number 13.
this season is pretty good. I'm a fan of this season.
And
And,
I feel like this is where you and me kind of differ from general, not like general opinion, is that we really like Guatemala.
I had it at 12.
Yeah, I had it down at 16, but I mean, 13 through 16 were all interchangeable to me.
Right. I mean, once we're dealing with 29 things. They're definitely going to be
Yeah.
close. Guatemala had a great cast. I really liked Judd. Seeing the bully kind of mean side of Stephanie was pretty funny because she was this big, big fan favorite, and then everyone's like, whoa, whoa. She's kind of like a huge bitch.
Yeah.
I liked Rafe a lot. Danny is a underrated winner. She didn't
Yep.
really get professionals about strategy because she didn't want production, to know what she was up to. But she played a pretty savvy game, kind of floating around. Gary was a fun character, the first ever hidden immunity idol. What else you got?
I mean, I think we both agree Danny's an underrated winner. I really like Danny, and I think she played a great game. I really liked Rafe. This was the first time where I was like, you know what? When they brought back Stephanie and Bobby John, it worked because nobody played them up too much. I love the Bobby John, and I forget the guy's name, but when they got in that fight, it was so ridiculous, but it's so entertaining. And what was his name?
Jamie. And Jamie was an
That's
interesting
it.
guy. He was the most paranoid survivor probably ever. And
Yeah.
that's what got him voted out. And remember they had one of the tribes won like a alligator-proof pool so they could swim, and then they invited the other tribe over for a pool party. There was some leftover chocolates. I mean, that was fun to see. I really enjoyed Guatemala.
Yeah. And what I like, I think, most about Guatemala, too, I think that this was like the first time too where like they had the first tribe swap and the pre-merge vote outs were awesome. Like I really like the pre-merge vote outs. I mean, when we did the one-time player draft, I took Brian Corden as my first guy. I really liked Brian Corden. I liked Amy O'Hara. She was like that Boston girl. She was really cool. Even the first vote out, Jim, when they did that huge hike through the woods, that was cool. Like it was all really good stuff. And then post-merge, one thing that I thought was great, when that girl Cindy won the car.
Oh,
And
right.
she had the opportunity to give everyone else there a car, and she didn't do it. That was one of my favorite moments from the show, like early seasons, because that just showed like she knew that if she gave it up, she was leaving there without a car and without the $1 million. So she just took the car and knew she was going home anyway.
I was shocked when she didn't do it. It's like, and even Rafe said this, how do you not give everyone a car when you have the opportunity to? Yeah, that was a big moment. And then there was Lydia in there who was like, man, could she win this thing? Probably not, but it was kind of, you had competitors in the game. You had people that were, that were fighting to win. It wasn't a slam dunk who was gonna win. And I was entertained just throughout.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That was a very entertaining season, and that was the initiation of the immunity idol, and it was a cool little thing, and the twist that they used worked. And let's move on to number 12, Australia. We have Australia at 12.
We differed pretty greatly on this, I think. I had Australia at 18.
I had it at 9.
You had it at 9. You had it in your top 10.
This one, the reason I have Australia so high is because it was the first time you saw a blind side. It was the first time these characters that are in Australia, these are still some of the most talked about characters to ever play the game with Colby, Tina. I mean, they just played in the 20s. You know what I mean? Like, they played during season 20. Jerry played during season 20. This was when you first really started to see different personalities and how much they could do on the show like Survivor. I mean, you had Colby the Dominator. You had, Roger, who was that likable old guy. Keith, who was just kind of like a goat. Tina, who was really like the mom figure, but also like really good at everything she did. Alicia, who was just like this angry person. I mean, you had a really likable cast. It wasn't unpredictable, but it was unpredictable enough in that you actually saw some blind sides. And I feel like this season has stood the test of time better than some of the earlier ones pre-Amazon. Out of the top 5, this one stood the test of time the best out of the first 5 seasons.
I do like Australia, and I think the cast was really really great. You know, with Elizabeth and Amber, along with those people that you mentioned. Um, but like I've said this before, I'm not taking the older seasons and rating them as older seasons. I'm putting all these seasons on an equal playing field. And the Survivor that I've come to enjoy has just, it's not really been, if they were to take Survivor and edit it for like today's kind of game of heavier strategy, it would be edited differently. I would probably enjoy it more. Now, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying it it just lacks the kind of intensity, and it's like they were all hanging out on an island. They were very. It's hard to point out why or what my real problem with is it, because I like the finale a lot. I mean, having Tina and Colby in there, that was a toss-up. And that's always fun to see when you don't know who's going to win. I really enjoyed that. But just kind of the middling, just kind of throughout, pre-merge, then into the merge, nothing really. I like the cow, the beef jerky thing,
Yeah.
but I mean, just nothing really huge. And I do like the characters, and I'm not saying it's a bad season. I love Survivor. I like 17 seasons more so than I do Australia.
And my thing is, when I go back to when I want to watch a Survivor season, I do find myself watching random episodes of Australia more so than other seasons, and I don't know why that is. I think I just put more emphasis on cast than maybe you do, where I really look and when I look at what I have higher up, it's got to have a great cast that I really connect with and I really like. And every vote in Australia when somebody got voted off, I felt like, oh man, either I didn't want them to go or oh yeah, I'm so happy they went. And I feel like that's what sets that one apart for me as compared to other seasons.
Okay, I hear you. I just felt when I did like the cast a lot. So especially during the merge, when someone went home, like let's say just when Amber goes home, it's just like, okay, damn, Amber's gone, but I kind of like everyone left. And then like Elizabeth goes, it's like darn, and even I just didn't feel. I don't know. I didn't really feel that strongly either way when someone went home. So I mean,
I understand what you're saying with the blind sides and stuff. It wasn't the most exciting season, but I feel like it's one of the most well put together seasons. And I feel like it was a consistently entertaining season. I feel like it was very entertaining. And that brings us into number 11, which I also feel like is a very consistent, entertaining season, but not that shocking in terms of blind sides. And that's Survivor Palau, with Tom Westman as probably one of, I think, top 5 winners to ever play the game.
Yeah, Palau I had a lot higher than you. I had Palau, I think at 7. Yeah, I had it at 7. I
was 14.
Palau's post-merge was just so enjoyable. I felt that every episode after the merge was like gold. I don't know why. I need to definitely rewatch it, but I remember going, I could not wait for the next week during that season. And you had a good amount. I mean, Katie was such a lame Final 2 candidate, but right up until Ian and Tom were still in there, it was like, Ian or Tom is going to take this thing probably, and you didn't really know which one. And that final immunity challenge was so great, and Ian just they don't even go to tribal, he just ends the game. I thought it was awesome how we've never seen one tribe just completely decimated down to 2 people. I mean, that was a Survivor first, and Stephanie pulls it out and then survives a couple more tribals. That was really cool to see. I love Palau.
I guess my biggest issue with Palau is because the one tribe got decimated, you lost a lot of great characters, and you kept around a couple people who I wasn't too crazy about, such as Janu, who quit. Katie was just kind of a weak character who would have been gone pre-merge had it been a normal season of Survivor. I do really think characters like Jen, Greg, Karen, Kobe, they were really entertaining characters, and I really did like them. And to have the Tom and Ian thing, that was great, and have Stephanie come in. But for me, when you lose players like a James Miller, an Ibrahim, these are people who were on Bobby John's team, Angie, one of my favorite vote offs pre-merge ever, because she was that different person who really made it work. And when you lose characters like that, I feel like you lose characters like that forever with how that season played out, and you'll never see them again. And I feel like it just kind of hurt. It kind of hurts in terms of the long run, where you had a lot of people just hang around for too long, like that old guy Willard, who really didn't do anything.
Well, Willard, he was the only one that didn't make it to the merge from. And this, I guess it wasn't even a merge. I'm calling it post-merge. This was an absorption. There was no merge.
Yeah.
The only season without a merge. And I do agree that we did lose a lot of people in that one tribe. That could have been good. But I think because I was so entertained by after the absorption and right down to the finale, I thought every episode was good. I think it made up for that. And we still got to see, good characters leave early. Then we got to see a good mix of entertaining characters on this really strong tribe. They kind of had to cannibalize each other, which was really cool to see. So,
yeah. Well, once again, me having it at 14. This goes back to what we were saying earlier. That does not mean I think it's a bad season. 14 is very highly ranked for Survivor. It's hard once you get to the top 15. It's hard to decipher which ones you really like more than the others. It's nitpicking at that point. It really is.
That's what we'll do in the next episode of the podcast. This will be a two-parter because we're going on pretty long here. So we'll save the top 10 for a second part, and we'll get into our top 10 favorite seasons. And let us know in the comments if you disagree with a certain season, or if you do agree, or anything you want to say. Let us know. And those are the 29 to 11. There they are.
We want to make sure we give 1 through 10 their due. If we got them in the top 10, we don't want to talk more about Redemption Island than something like China or Amazon or even Heroes versus Villains. So.
Right. We'll see how those all shake out in the next episode. So see you then.